I only drank 2 sodas in 9 years. Here's how I did it. The average American drinks about 43 gallons per year. This equates to us drinking 358 pounds of soda, which is equivalent to the weight of the average sumo wrestler holding a corgi. If that doesn't make sense, think of it like this. We drink enough soda to fill a standard bathtub to the top, with an extra gallon to spare. Comment down below, what has been your longest streak in breaking any sort of addiction you have had? Now you're probably thinking, oh, he probably just doesn't like soda, it's probably so easy for him. Very wrong. I crave soda all the time, and I have on and off for years. Also, I should mention that where I'm from, we call it soda. So if you call it something else, then in your head, replace it with pop, fizzy pop, soft drinks, whatever suits your fancy. Now, I think I've only had 1 soda in 8th grade and then maybe 1 in freshman year of high school, but both could have been in that 8th grade year, which means I have been soda sober for 7 to 8 years. Keep in mind, this is when I was still a kid and was supposed to be drinking soda all the time. I decided to chill out a bit at the age of 13 and slowly transition into a harder commitment by the age of 14, in which I gave in a couple of times, but by the age of 14 or 15, I completely stopped. That's also when I kind of realized that it's kind of dumb to just go cold turkey on some things, especially these bad things. It's not best to cut out every single part of something right away. This could go for sugar, drinking, smoking, whatever, but you can basically apply this to any aspect of life. Now, this sounds a little bit contradictory to what you probably hear most of the time, but hear me out. The natural human instinct is to rebel, so by saying, you can't have this or you can't do that, it makes you kind of say, nah, I want to do this and I want to have that. By telling yourself you can't have something constantly, makes you want more, so give yourself some leeway. If you have found anything of value so far, or if you're simply enjoying the video, please be sure to drop a like down below. Thank you. Even myself, someone with a rather robotic discipline, can fall into these traps. For example, when I did my bodybuilding competition about a year ago, where I'm constantly cutting food, cutting weight, trying to look as shredded as possible, I wanted food constantly. When I was bulking from July to about this past March, I wanted to stop eating so much food so often, and I wasn't even eating in that big of a surplus either. Although I did get sick 3 times, and that kind of naturally made me take a few breaks, so lucky me, I guess. It's just human nature to rebel, is what I'm trying to say. So here is my solution that comes into this problem of addiction. Taper off as best you can. So, for example, if you are drinking 2 sodas a day, try to cut it down to 1 soda a day. If you eat 9 heavy binging cheat meals a week, try to cut it down to 4 or 5 binging cheat meals a week. I think in these circumstances, rounding up will help you more long-term and make this tactic more sustainable. Plus, it gives you more room for growth and progression, which feels good when you hit those little mini goals leading up to that bigger goal. Now for soda specifically, here is a theoretical transition. Take however much soda you drink and cut it into 2/3 of that, or maybe even half of that, on a per day, per week, per month basis, however big your challenge is. Now eventually, when you feel like you are ready to take the next step, drink that same amount of soda, but transition it into diet soda. It might not taste as great as it did previously, but if you stick with it and don't look back, you'll realize you might like it even more than the regular soda, and you're probably feeling better overall as well, physically and mentally. Now, once again, when you feel like you are ready to take the next step after that, I think transitioning to something like sparkling water is a phenomenal move. The main reason being for the carbonation factor of it. I realize myself personally, and a few people I know, would much rather have that texture of soda, so like the carbonation, the fizziness to it, than the actual drink and taste itself. That's what gets me personally and hits my cravings for soda. Not to mention, some of these sparkling waters taste darn near like the real thing, so it's something to consider. And this theoretical transition can go for many different things, so I'll give you another example. I had this addiction to cereal. No, like a major addiction to cereal. And when I say addiction, I don't mean, oh yeah, I had a bowl every other day. I mean, I quite literally had 1 to 5 bowls of cereal a day for years on end, on average. Sometimes it'd be 1 to 2 bowls in the morning, sometimes it'd be about 1 bowl around lunchtime, and then 1 to 2 bowls before bed, rather consistently. And this took place from first grade all the way to sophomore year in college. Fun fact, in elementary school, my parents were actually worried about my weight because of these habits. Now, I was still athletic and fast as fudge, but that's just because I was so active all the time as well. I kid you not, I straight up had a beer belly of milk and cereal, which did give valid reason to pose a concern to my parents. Of course, sometimes that doesn't mean I'd be eating a bunch of other food on top of it, so that is why I didn't get necessarily obese at the time. Plus, I was hyper active with sports the entire time. So my sophomore year in college, I wanted to get into a shredding phase. So I decided to make a change, and here is how I did it. So of course, at the time, I was still having all the cereal with 2% milk in it, which is very fatty and sugary. At the time, I transitioned to whole milk, which I feel like it's kind of the same with soda and diet soda. It doesn't taste great at first, but when you kind of just keep going with it, you get kind of used to it, and you realize the other stuff was way too sweet. So I made the transition from cereal to peanut butter and honey sandwiches, which, I mean, overall, there's probably less sugar and it's a little bit less fatty as well. So that's some sort of progress in there. And I started having protein shakes with these peanut butter honey sandwiches instead of just plain milk, which I know for some of you. And maybe about 9 to 12 months later, when I started getting comfortable with this, I transitioned to egg variations for my breakfast, as well as a protein shake on top of it. Now, these egg variations included just eggs at first. I just straight up cracked the egg, let it fry on the pan, and then just eat them like that. Plain, nothing much to it. And I found that got boring very fast, so I started doctoring it up a little bit more. I started putting ham into it, I started using hot sauces, I started using other things to complement the taste of these eggs, making it way more palatable. And one thing that was pretty cool to me that I realized was I didn't have a whole lot of energy in the mornings as well, because I mean, I was kind of just having straight protein for the most part, even with the protein shake included for some carbs. So I started adding toast into it, and when I got bored with just plain toast, I started putting a little bit of Nutella on it. I don't recommend adding butter or Nutella or anything like that as an optimal way of dieting, but it does help me get some carbs in and gives me energy for my workouts, so I can push harder during my workouts and in the rest of my day. And since I eat a lot of food, right now I am currently eating about 5 whole eggs in the morning. I know egg whites are more optimal, but that's just what I'm doing right now, as well as 2 pieces of toast with Nutella on it and a protein shake. I'm a big breakfast person. It helps me get going throughout the day. I don't eat a lot in the middle of the day, so this helps me last for quite a while. Now, is this the most optimal breakfast I could be eating? No, of course not. But it did work for me and has continued to work for me over the course of the past 3 years or so. And these are just some of the examples that have worked for me. And it may work for you as well. But of course, adjust as you need. Discipline plays a huge factor as well in not going back to it. Do what you can. Anything is better than nothing. Just set up short-term goals and long-term goals along the way. And as you keep ticking those off, you'll feel better and better. And sometimes even that sense of progression will help you stay motivated as well. Subscribe if you feel like it, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.